Have you ever felt like a shotgun's damage with buckshot or flechette rounds just never seemed quite right? Like maybe it's not doing as much damage as it should?
Вот это я понимаю!
If so, what's the solution? Or rather, what's the problem? Hello and welcome to my 11th weapon guide for Escape from Tarkov. I go by Freakatoid, and today I am covering part 2 of the shotgun guide, which in this case is all about buckshot and flechette rounds. While seemingly not the most impressive and, quite frankly, confusing ammo in Tarkov, I'll do my best to clear some misconceptions and try to help you in your Tarkov career. Without further ado, let's begin. First of all, I think we can all agree on one thing. Buckshot and flechette rounds were not meant for mid to long range combat. We can mod shotguns to be able to reach out further than usual, but you'd never want to actively engage anybody at 30 meters if you aren't using slug rounds. Buckshot and flechette sacrifice their long range capability in order to make close range, or CQB, their specialty. With that in mind, one of the first things you need to understand is that range will pretty much always be a problem with these weapons. Tighten the spread or increase the bullet velocity all you want, you just can't fix it. Along with the trouble with making rounds like buckshot and flechette carry itself out to range, there is also a problem with the spread of these rounds. Upon testing all 6 of the rounds I'm covering in this video, they all shared the same exact results with spread testing that I covered in part 1 of this weapon guide. Despite what personal stats towards accuracy each shell had, it did not give any different results in any of the shotguns. With that out of the way, there is actually something pretty finicky going on with these rounds and their damage values that we also should talk about. But I think we should go over each round in general first, and we'll start with what is essentially the most basic of 12 gauge, buckshot. Seven millimeter buckshot is going to be the most common 12 gauge shell you get your hands on. It deals 39 damage according to the inspect menu of this ammo, but what it doesn't immediately tell you is that this is calculated on a per pellet basis. 7mm has 8 pellets total, which means that this ammo is calculated to deal up to 312 damage total, provided all pellets land on target. Don't let this value trick you though, as ammo in this game has a drop-off in damage as soon as the round is fired. Therefore, while this ammo tells you that it does enough damage to allow 1 pellet to kill with a headshot, it really doesn't pass 3 meters! Like a majority of the buckshot ammo for 12 gauge, you will want 2 pellets to land on some unarmored part of the head of your target in order to secure an insta-kill. This is why sometimes you may see that you barely survived a headshot from a scab that is wielding a shotgun. 7mm in particular is, once again, the most common type of shotgun shell. So you'll notice that I compare every other 12 gauge buckshot to this one. This will help me explain what each shell does differently from each other. It's perfectly capable of making a killing floor out of scavs and low armored players, but just know that this is the basic of basic shotgun ammo, and you will most likely be dependent on the actual shotgun you are using with this ammo for good results. On paper, 5.25mm ammo looks like its sole purpose is to simply be cheaper than 7mm. With seemingly less damage per pellet and a penetration power of 1, it looks and quite frankly feels incredibly unremarkable. What sets this shell apart from the other buckshot rounds is actually its bullet velocity, or pellet velocity? I don't know. While this once again is noticeably worse than any of the other buckshot available, it does actually have a singular use. This round is subsonic, which means this ammo should, in turn, make less of a sound profile than the other ammo available here. In practice though, I was only able to get the Saiga 12 to reach subsonic bullet velocity while suppressed. It deals slightly more damage than 7mm, despite what it claims, but the slower bullet velocity will be a pain to deal with further away as you're attempting to shoot targets with it. Still, it's not that bad of a shell to use, and it's certainly better than 7mm. 6.5mm Express rounds are one of the most popular shotgun shells in the game, rival only to the round I'll cover next. 6.5mm does two things special in comparison with the other buckshot options. The first one you'll notice is its increased accuracy and reduced recoil stats, which make this round immediately seem like the best option alone. Well, first off, you have to remember that the accuracy stat is not a factor, because again, I found no difference in spread to any of the other shells across any shotgun. The recoil difference, however, is incredibly impactful. Semi-auto weapons benefit greatly from the increased control of faster firing these shells, making it possible to accurately send tons of rounds on target, even at greater distances. The second thing you may notice is that this round has an extra pellet per shot, which is greatly appreciated considering it's straight up impossible for a singular pellet to cause a headshot kill alone, with a reduced damage of 35 per pellet, which will drop below 35 as soon as the weapon's fired a single meter away. If I'm being honest here, this round is incredibly good even with the reduced damage, but the downside is that this ammo is best fired fast and in large quantities. It's a devastating round when played this way, but it can leave you in a bad place if you expend every round you have loaded into the weapon. This playstyle can have you constantly reloading, so you'll have to manage just how much of a commitment you are making if you mag dump a target, especially when you are dealing with tube-fed shotguns, which are essentially prone to put you in a bad situation if you run dry. If you are okay with these downsides, it is downright scary to go up against. Since you aren't exactly going for the perfect shots, you can easily win most of the fights you would lose from having to take time between your shots, and makes point-blank battles much easier to win. Semi-auto shotguns will best utilize this ammo because they can output rounds about as fast as you can pull the trigger. Pump-action shotguns don't get much benefit using this round since you want something that will kill more consistently with one shot, especially since the second shot may be your last before you get lit up by your target. This is it, the king of consistency right here. This round may have a horribly higher recoil than any other shotgun shell in the game, but it packs one hell of a punch. With a whopping 50 damage per pellet and 8 pellets total, you only need one pellet to hit the unarmored part of a head for a kill, or 2 pellets with any other body part to destroy it. You may also notice that accuracy decrease that the stat doesn't matter, remember? I did all the testing, and the spread is exactly the same. This shotgun round is my personal recommendation anytime you want to use a shotgun. It's damn near impossible not to kill something with this round so long as it actually hits flesh. Sure, the massively increased recoil does make quick follow-up shots very hard to control with some shotguns, but the range on these shells is ridiculous. Now, what's the major downside of this round? It isn't sold until Jaeger Loyalty Level 3. However, this round can be found on scavs, which is actually pretty terrifying to think about, isn't it? Check some scavs to see if they are in possession of this round, and carry a stack or two out for those pesky shotgun quests you'll have to deal with later. Seriously, do not underestimate these rounds' potential. In the early wipe, they can do some serious work, and their potential is only enhanced by what shotgun you use them with. The KS3... Oh my god. The KS-23 Shrapnel rounds are incredible. Like I covered in part 1 of this series, both Shrapnel 10 and Shrapnel 25 deal massive amounts of damage. Shrapnel 10 is the better round of the two, dealing more damage and being more consistent with one-shot kills when shooting to the legs. Shrapnel 25... Ignore this ammo. Since discovering the lack of spread change with all buckshot ammo, it kinda defeats the purpose that this round advertises. Eliminating the supposed accuracy increase that this round gives just reveals that it does less damage with more recoil and identical damage to armor. In case you forgot, Shrapnel 10 is a fearsome round that can one-shot all non-boss enemies with a single shot to the leg at closer ranges. The increase in the weapon's spread hardly matters with this round as well, since all it takes is a single pellet to remove any body part that isn't armored. While I still wouldn't use this at longer ranges, it can handle itself pretty well. Also, as if to mock me, patch 15 actually fixed the KS-23's misaligned sights that I made such a big deal about, and they even added a special reflex sight for it as well. This thing is an absolute, unparalleled monster now. Give it a try. This is a weird match. I've never seen anyone else use shotguns, other than me. I'm gonna keep this part brief because I'm quite frankly tired of using the Taz. All of the buckshot for 20 gauge is pretty much the same. They all take about 2 to 3 pellets to the head to kill, but they are extremely accurate rounds because of the Taz. Use whatever your heart desires, or whatever your scav spawned with when they had this gun, exactly the same way as its other options. If you like the ability to overwhelm targets at close range with a barrage of projectiles, but you don't appreciate how armor pretty much kills all the fun, then Flechette and Piranha rounds are for you. While they sacrifice a great deal of damage per pellet, they make up for this with both armor penetration and armor damage. They also do not drop their range much at all at longer ranges, making them as good as the shotgun spread lets them be. This is the type of ammo you use when you want consistent kills rather than high-risk reward kills. You must keep in mind that these rounds deal way less damage on purpose, so you will very likely need several shots to put down your target with these rounds. Both of these rounds are also subsonic, which means the round will travel slower than their buckshot counterparts. These rounds are much more popular among the player base because these rounds do eventually produce results even through the best armor in the game. There is a bit of debate on which of these two rounds are better, despite them being nearly identical. I hope to clarify what actually makes them different when I talk about them here and now. Flechette rounds boast two things over its competition, with the major one being its high-grade armor penetration. This round will go through pretty much all soft armor in the game with no issue at all, and a good majority of face protection can't hold it back either. Its high level of penetration per pellet, yes, I said per pellet, means you have a much better chance of dealing at least some significant amount of damage per shot. And each time you hit your target, that large armor damage just becomes a kill more likely. It also has 25% chance at a heavy bleed, a light bleed, or both. Again, this is on a per pellet basis, meaning you have a pretty damn good chance of inflicting a large amount of extra damage over time when you're shooting a target. In the past, these rounds were hard to come by, but with the recent patch .15, these rounds become available at loyalty level 3 through Jaeger. It will be interesting to see where players gravitate when both this round and Piranha are both widely available. Piranha rounds are the other anti-armor round available for spread shotgun loadouts. This round is generally cheaper and available from Jaeger at loyalty level 2. This round has identical damage stats to Flechette rounds and even has a few more projectiles per shot than Flechette rounds. The catch is that this ammo does have a lower armor penetration value per pellet, and it does still have a decent chance at causing bleeds to your target, but the primary reason to use this ammo is the increased pellets so that RNG feels a little bit more in favor per shot. When it comes to these rounds and their damage against armor, there are two different arguments here. Armor penetration power versus projectile count. Which of the two is better? My original thoughts and theories for this came from Gigabeef's Flechette vs Piranha video, where he basically tested both of these rounds against the same types of armor over a year ago, with results that practically show Flechette was an overall better choice for fighting armor due to its higher penetration per pellet, which performed better over Piranha's increased projectile count despite a small difference in penetration power. However, there was a problem that lies with this video to absolutely no fault or hate towards Gigabeef's efforts: the armor system changes. In patch .14, Battlestate Games changed the way that armor worked, adding several layers of complexity past just using different types of armor. This system, while a bit weird at the time, made players have much more armor durability in protected areas. It split armor into two different types: soft armor and plate armor. Without going into full detail here, soft armor mostly ranges from class 1 to 3, while plate armor mostly ranges from class 4 to 6. Soft armor protects pretty much every area that the equipment visually covers. Plate armor covers a smaller center area of the equipment. With patch .15, this was upgraded further, with the plate armor basically stretching across to full protection of the upper body. This caused a lot of ammo to become much less effective because armor essentially became much tougher to pierce and lasted through more rounds. Shotguns suffered heavily from this change, with Buckshot alone. But to be honest, I never looked into how the armor changes specifically affected Flechette or Piranha. As a result, I wanted to be thorough and use a variety of armor combinations. Questions like, which is better for soft armor? Which is better for plate armor? Which is better for a combination? But even then, with so many classes of soft and plate armor, what is the baseline? So here's some rules for how I set this up. With soft armor, I stuck to using the same level 2 vest and level 3 vest to keep things consistent. I also added a vest with no soft armor whatsoever. With each of these vests, I tested no plate, level 4 plate, and level 5 plate for a total of 8 tests total for both rounds each. What, you thought I was going to test no soft armor and no plate? Don't be ridiculous. But yeah, I wanted a wide variety of situations here to look at so you can see the scale of these rounds. Keep in mind that all of these tests involve hitting every pellet per shot, which will likely never actually happen every time that you fire. This test is meant to give you the best case scenario of each round, not the practical one. Here's what I have to show for it. Look, despite the test results that you see here, both of these rounds will do an amazing job when fired quickly and accurately at your target. So you decide which of these two best fits your needs. So in order to explain why the range of shotguns seems to be all over the place, I need to talk a little bit about damage range in Tarkov. One of the best examples I have of this is actually used to be with 545x39 ammo prior to the buff it received in patch point 15. In the old ammo chart for 545, one type of round called BS rounds dealt a listed 43 damage per bullet. In comparison with the rogues located on Lighthouse, which have a health of 42 for their head. This would tell you that BS rounds are capable of killing a rogue with a headshot using only one bullet, right? This is only partially correct, and it's because all bullets in this game actually have slightly reduced damage the further they have traveled to their target. By the time that BS round has traveled a grand total of 36 meters, they lost enough damage to deal a killing headshot blow to these rogues. This logic works the same way with every shotgun shell, but trying to hand test this to figure out if the calculated value was the same as it truly feels in-game was next to impossible to do with Buckshot and Flechette. Because they are composed of multiple pellets, it was pretty damn hard to just get a single pellet to hit a target in order to accurately get the correct damage to display. Even the times where I did get a single pellet to hit, it would still display something completely different than Tarkov ballistics would give me, which I considered to be the calculated value of damage range. For this reason, I believe JustLockTV from part 1 of this series was correct in his assessment that Tarkov is not able to correctly calculate all pellets individually on a target.
I find it hard to believe that Tarkov can account for the amount of pellets that come out of a shell or a slug or whatever to be accurate within each damage they deal. There's no way.
For those of you wondering, I decided to try and use GigaBeast's method of calculating damage range for shotguns by basically shooting a scav in the leg with as few pellets as possible and calculating the damage per pellet by dividing the total damage I was dealing by the number of pellets that actually hit. These numbers were extremely erratic, but I do actually have somewhat of an explanation for this. When firing at a target's arm or leg with any kind of round, all shots will do full damage right up until the limb is actually destroyed or blacked. Once they are gone, the damage will instead be distributed across the entire body at a reduced amount, which for legs I believe is about 70% of the damage that the round would have dealt. Shotguns follow this rule religiously. I cannot technically prove this, but my best running theory is that the first 1 to 3 pellets, depending on what shotgun round you are using, will deal full damage right up until it is destroyed. However, in the same spread of pellets, any additional pellets will deal the reduced amount of damage to the rest of the body. To picture this theory a little better, if you hit all 8 pellets with 7mm buckshot at 39 a pop, 2 of those pellets would actually be hitting at 39, while the remaining 6 pellets would only hit at about 27 damage. It's this combination of damage range reducing the actual damage of the round with this strict reduced damage to black limbs is what I believe is causing the most frustration with shotguns. The most likely scenario is that you are not only hitting a few pellets at a time in the exact same area of the body, you are in fact not dealing the full damage you think you are. Think of it this way. If you hit 2 pellets per shot on a black leg at a distant target with 7mm buckshot, you could be dealing as little as 50 damage per shot, which is pretty pitiful for how much effort you have to put in. Flechette and Piranha would have it so much worse, considering they deal less damage per pellet than even basic buckshot round. Admittedly, once I got to a certain point with damage range testing for about 4 to 5 shotguns, I couldn't take it anymore. as I would get a large range of average damage for the exact same distance away. Knowing the spread of your shotgun is one thing, but what does the Tarkov community currently think in regards to buckshot and flechette rounds? Keeping with tradition, I sought out some content creators on their thoughts regarding this topic, and here is what they had to say.
So I use the MP153, and then I use Piranha. If you don't have Piranha, which is Jaeger level 2, then use like Buckshot or... But I always use the 153 though. 153 and either Piranha or Flechettes, stuff like that.
Express. Express rounds do a high damage, like high flesh damage, and it has decent-ish pin, even though it doesn't. But I mean, 2 shots legs, someone's dying. Let's put it this way: I use 7mm buck. Not a fan. Doesn't travel very far. It's kind of a joke. I feel like I'm shooting birdshot at everything. Piranha can kiss my ass this wipe. I don't know why it feels so bad, but it does. Magnum worked a little bit, but wasn't giving me the TTK that I wanted. Express, on the other hand, 2 shots, dead. 2 shots, legs, dead. Like, 2 full good shots on legs, insta-death. It was amazing. So, Express all the way.
When I first started playing Tarkov, it was either Magnum Buckshot or Flechette. And that's just because it did the most damage and within medium, like close to medium range. Those are the only 2 I use. Magnum Buckshot I think is really good. And I think Flechette's really good, like I said. Just because it hits the hardest, Freakatoid. They hit the hardest, I think.
Piranha. But I know people like Flechettes over Piranha, but I've had better luck.
If you had both to choose from, which would you prefer? Flechette. Piranha just doesn't feel good right now. Piranha felt great whenever it came out last wipe, but I feel like we were able to headshot with it last wipe, whereas this wipe, I shot a dude in the head with Piranha and he laughed it off. It doesn't do enough damage to actually kill with a headshot unless like multiple rounds hit somebody in the head. But if only one piece of shrapnel hits them, they're not dying. I'll choose Flechette all day long just for the heavy bleed factor of it. I did use Flechette, so I'm a huge fan of that.
Flechette or Piranha rounds, if you had both to choose from, which would you prefer? I don't know. Piranha failed me when I was doing setup, so I put on Flechette and I started killing everything. Yeah, it depends on what you have access to. Piranha doesn't have any armor pin. Flechette pins up to level 3. And when I was like mag dumping Piranha, I wasn't killing anyone. When I was mag dumping Flechette, I was killing people. That's probably the main reason why I would choose Flechette over Piranha. This has a little bit more armor pin. Piranha and Flechette, I would say, are pretty even though when it comes to flesh damage, like shooting the legs or the arms.
Do you find it frustrating to use Buckshot or Flechette sometimes? Both. I don't know. I've just been liking the Piranha rounds ever since they came out. That's all I've been using, really. I'll try not to touch shotguns until I'll have those. One of those 2.
Piranha, 100% frustrating. I ran 4 raids on customs with Piranha rounds. Only killed 1 person, but was damaging multiple. Couldn't figure out why people weren't dying. I said, screw Piranha. I sold it all in my stash, like every bit of Piranha, I sold it all in my stash and went and bought Express. Very next raid, I finished, or 2 raids later, technically, finished setup, and I needed like 6 more kills. And I was able to finish in 2 more raids. Piranha, I had a 2-man right in front of me. I got so frustrated. I had a 2-man right in front of me. I was only hitting headshots with Piranha, and neither dude died. And they were 15 feet in front of me, give or take. And that raid right there is what made me drop Piranha. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was just super disappointing.
Do you find it frustrating to use Buckshot, Flechette, and Piranha sometimes? Yeah, Freakatoid, I do. Using any shotgun is frustrating, Freakatoid, because it just doesn't kill.
For newer players who are having trouble with those rounds, aim at their thorax, and then by the time it raises, like the second shot would be on his face. I would say like high thorax. If you shoot high thorax, then your second, third shot is always going to be in the head, even with any of the rounds, really.
Do you have any advice for newer players who are having trouble with those rounds? Kill scavs, get Express or Magnum to start off with. 7mm works as long as you aim for limbs, but make sure you're hitting legs and aiming for leg meta. Don't aim for armor with any of the buckshot rounds. It's not going to work. Definitely aim for limbs if you're using any type of buckshot.
Do you have any advice for newer players who are having trouble with these rounds? Yeah, aim for the legs and aim for the face. I mean, there's nothing else to really tell them.
Buckshot and Flechette rounds are some of the deadliest rounds in the game when kept to their respective close-range dominance. Trying to extend that effective range can only do so much, as these rounds will never be optimal for mid-range fighting and will certainly lose 99% of those fights at longer ranges. There are some rounds that work better for certain playstyles and situations than others, so do your best to keep them tailored for that purpose. For those of you that made it this far in the video, the final part, which is part 3, will be covering the slug rounds, which I will be starting testing for as of this upload date of this video. It may not be the next video I post, but I promise I won't make you wait too long for it. And for those of you who have just found me or just found this series, I cover how the shotguns themselves work in part 1 of the Shotgun Weapon Guide. I hope you enjoyed the video and perhaps learned something new. Be sure to subscribe.